Do you trust audio companies that don't submit their products for third-party testing? That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Hey folks, I'm Gene Delasallo with Audioholics. This is a topic I've been wanting to touch for a while. Now it's inspired by a recent call-out video from Richie over at GR Research, where I was invited to come out to his facility and to listen to his products, to experience true high fidelity according to him. And I appreciate that invite, and I've known Danny for several decades. I've always respected the work he's done when it comes to loudspeaker designs, but I've had many disagreements with him on cables and his little tweaks that he does in audio. But that's fine, because we could all be friends, and I think what he did was a very generous gesture towards me, and I appreciate that. But I do take some criticism for him for some of the stuff that he says in his video, and I want to address that. But I also want to make this more of a broad generalization about this topic, because I'm not really trying to single anybody out. I think at the end of the day, we could all have disagreements, but still be friends and understand and respect the fact that we all want better sound. That's what this hobby is all about. So the first thing I want to address is he does come up with some valid criticisms on today's generation of reviewers. And I hate to sound old when I say today's generation, but I've been doing this for over 2 decades. I'm freaking old, guys. I hate to admit it, but it's true. So I think most of the video that he was talking about reviewers being inexperienced or not having a good reference really pertains to this generation of YouTubers that are out there. And there's some really good ones out there. I'm not trying to say it's a bad platform or the people are not doing good work. But a lot of the YouTube reviewers today, they do lack the experience. They haven't been to trade shows for the last couple of decades. They haven't heard hundreds of different systems like I have and some other professional reviewers out there that are as old as me have. So their frame of reference is a little bit narrow. So there's definitely some agreement with Danny on that these guys need to get out there and experience more systems and also up their own game, get the room acoustics right in their systems, get the speaker positioning right, get a good reference so you understand what true performance, what true fidelity really is. So I want to just kind of talk about my scenario here as it relates to Audioholics, that I've been running this website now for over 2 decades. Part of the reason why I built this Audioholics smart house that I'm in right now is I wanted to bring the very best technologies together into one house for that's possible to achieve with consumer audio. So that's why I hired experts like Don Dunn from Haven Smart to do the custom integration, the video distribution, the audio distribution, the Smarthome integration, all that good stuff. And then I got guys like Anthony Grimani to help me with the room acoustics. Matthew Pose, of course, he's on our channel regularly. So I try to bring in experts from each discipline to further my knowledge and to also make this whole house truly state-of-the-art in everything we do. In fact, this is our office room here, where I'm setting up a 2-channel system. As you can see behind me, I've got some Revels and RBH speakers and Anthem STR electronics. This room had really bad acoustics and it had a half wall. So I spent, $4,000 or $5,000 creating a full wall in here, closing this entire room in, soundproofing the wall over here, so that way I could blast the music and not disturb people in the house down below me. And I've got acoustic treatments in here. I've got some GIC acoustic treatments in the ceiling. More stuff is coming. This room is still a work in progress. We still haven't put everything in position. But just to show you the lengths that I go, I'm trying to get every room to have good focus and sound. Because at the end of the day, I know a lot of people say, oh, you're just a home theater magazine, you don't care about 2-channel. That couldn't be further from the truth. I'm more of a 2-channel guy than anything else. My philosophy is to get the 2-channel right first and then add more speakers as you get all that stuff correct. So I try to have the very best 2-channel, not just for the main listening position, but for, as many seats as possible. And just to give you an example, in my main theater room, this is the RBH SVTRS system that I recently reviewed. It's fully active. There's no analog crossovers in there. It's all done through DSP, state-of-the-art DSP from Marani. It's a commercial grade DAC that's got like 120 dB SNR. So this system is fully active. It's fully FIR corrected. This room is acoustically treated. I had Anthony Gramani help me with the acoustic treatments in here, as you could see on the walls. The side walls are symmetric. I've got acoustic treatments there. I've got acoustic treatments on the ceiling. The back of the room is acoustically treated, and I'm still adding stuff to this. So I'm still upgrading some of the acoustics in here. But when people say measurements don't matter, you got to listen, or all you do is do measurements and you don't listen, they're both wrong. That philosophy is completely wrong. Measurements do matter. Measurements help you understand where there's problems with product performance. Measurements help you to improve the product or improve the room acoustics that you're listening to them in. And we have to use measurements to govern the science of what these products are, because let's face it, designing audio is science. It's art, but it's also science. So in this room in particular, I looked at acoustical measurements to make sure I was on the right track. I did an RT60 decay time in here, and as you can see, it hovers right at around 350 milliseconds, and it's very linear. There's no big bumps or anything. So the entire room is well behaved, and that's why this room sounds so incredibly good. And I could show this in a measurement why this sounds good, and this is a great measurement to show that. And then when you look at the main listening position and I do a wavelet, I've got perfect time coherence and phase coherence almost for the entire full bandwidth of spectrum, and that's at the main listening position. That's really hard to achieve. A measurement like this you can't achieve with a passive speaker. I have never seen a passive speaker measure like this in a room. So this is quite an achievement. I'm going to do further videos on this to discuss it. So again, measurements do matter. Listening matters. You measure, you hone in the art, and you get it to sound good, and then you confirm that everything is good with measurements. That's kind of how the approach I take. So one of the things Danny said was, he wants people to come out to him either because they don't have a good reference, or maybe they just don't know how to make the proper measurements to show true product performance. And I kind of find that a little bit obtuse, to be honest with you, because there are a lot of good guys out there on YouTube and on the magazines that are doing great measurements. There's a YouTuber, Aaron from Aaron's Corner. He's got a full Clipple, multi-$1,000 measurement system at his disposal, so he could do the very accurate measurements. There's guys on other websites like Stereophile that are still doing really good loudspeaker measurements. And then we invest. I got James Larson going outdoors to measure speakers, bringing them up on a pole and spinning them around on a platform to generate measurements like this. Now, this is a CTA 2034 spin of this product performance. It shows you the on axis, the early reflections, total sound power, listening window, directivity index. This is a standardized way to measure loudspeakers. The guys at Harman, Dr. Floyd Toole and Sean Oliver, spent decades correlating how a speaker measures versus how people prefer things to sound. And there's a very high correlation factor between how the speaker measures like this versus what they would prefer in a blind listening test. So there's a lot of science that goes behind this, and it takes a lot of measurements. As you can see in this diagram, you measure all around the speaker. We do this stuff, and we're not the only ones that do this stuff. There's a couple of other guys. There's maybe a handful of people online that actually do measurements to this level, and they don't just do a measurement in a room at one mic position and call it a day. This stuff really does matter. We do the same thing with subwoofers. We go outside. James Larson, I should say, goes outside. He carries his really heavy subwoofers out to an open field, puts a mic down on the ground, does a ground plane measurement, and does CEA 2010 output versus distortion data. And we take that data and we translate it to how loud it would play in a room and come up with Bassaholic room size ratings. This stuff is just very useful. That way, if you're buying a subwoofer, if you have a certain size room, you look at that Bassaholic rating, that subwoofer will play loud enough and clean enough in that size room. This is why measurements matter. So I questioned someone that does this for a living, that makes loudspeakers and critiques other people's loudspeakers and does modifications to those loudspeakers and constantly does videos, talking about the shortcomings of products. If you're going to do stuff like that, why don't you self-reflect and submit your products for verification, submit your products for review? I mean, it only makes a lot of sense to do that, right? So, and I'm not just trying to single out Danny Richie or from GR Research. As again, I said, I respect what he does. I think we've reviewed some of his products decades ago when he was with AV123, and I liked the sound of his speakers. I thought his budget line of speakers were really good. So what I wonder is, why are there still companies that won't submit for third-party verification? And is that something you would trust? Now, I want to give a couple of shout outs to some examples of companies that are really good and really open about submitting their products, regardless of how the thing comes out. At the end of the day, they still submit products. A company like Klipsch, who I have no affiliation with, they always are willing to send a product for review. And we've done favorable reviews on their stuff, and we've done not so favorable reviews. Some of their stuff doesn't measure well, and they still submit that product. We always send our data to make sure that what we're doing is accurate, and they never give you a hard time about publishing the data. You got to really respect companies like that. Another company is Yamaha. I get down to the nitty gritty, and I really measure every fine detail of these AV products with my audio precision. And I found, in most recently, Yamaha RXA 6A AV receiver, I found distortion issues on some of the channels. And here you can see the graph where I show this. Now, is it going to kill the product? No, it's not going to kill the product, because you put things into perspective. In this example, this graph doesn't look too pretty because not all of the distortion profiles are the same for each channel. But even the bad channels are at 0.05% THD plus N, which is way below the threshold of audibility for electronics. And I've done listening tests on this, and I've concluded that that is not an audibility issue in most cases. It's just not a pretty housekeeping thing, and Yamaha could do better, and they have done better. And that's the whole point of why companies submit products. They submit products to guys like me, or to guys like Aaron, or to guys like Stereophile. They submit these products just to show what they're really capable of. And if the reviewers find problems, most of the time these companies are proactive and they improve the products. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. So to say that you're not qualified to do a review because you're going to rely on measurements and not audio or not listening tests is bogus, because I think at the end of the day, everybody is doing listening tests and measurements, and they're trying to correlate the two, which is not always easy to do. So again, I wonder, if you go out, I think of this analogy with cars, because I just got my wife a new SUV. Before I bought my wife's SUV, I researched the hell out of it. I went on YouTube, I went on Car and Driver, Motor Trend, Raddy's Rides, or all these different guys on YouTube, and I looked at how they reviewed this car in particular. And I wanted to see how the thing performed. I wanted to see the acceleration times, the braking times. And it's not because I want to go 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. It's because I want to know that my car has that capability in an emergency maneuver, that I can accelerate and get away from someone. Or I want to know that the car has good stopping power and that the brakes don't fade over time. These things matter. So would you guys go and blindly buy a car that's never been reviewed, and the only thing you could rely on was a single test drive you had at the dealership for 10 minutes? I know I wouldn't. That's just not the kind of person I am. I like to see the data. I like to see everybody's data. And I think it's important to have multiple verifications, not just, one website or one person doing a product review. So I challenge any manufacturer that if you're not submitting products for review, either if it's not to Audioholics, submit it to other companies. Submit it, get your products out there. People sometimes ask me, how come you don't review XYZ or, whatever brand it is? And there's two answers to that. Either number one, we don't find any of the products in their lineup to be of interest, or number two, they will flat out not submit us a product. I've had companies that make subwoofers threaten to sue me if we ran CEA 2010 data on their subwoofers. Literally threatened to sue us, because they knew their product wasn't going to perform well in those scenarios because it's a small product and they didn't want to be exposed, which I think is ridiculous, because we always keep our measurements into perspective. So if you're that touchy, that just kind of leaves me uneasy. And if there's companies that are doing those kind of tactics, we just completely avoid them and we never touch their products again going forward. So again, I challenge you guys, do you buy products from companies that don't submit for third-party verification? That's the answer I want below. I want to see what your comments are for that. And I hope you do appreciate the fact that we do a lot of measurements. We do a lot of debunking. I don't believe in a lot of the cable voodoo. I think most of it is placebo, followed by expectation bias. That's why if you're going to do any kind of cable testing, it should be done blind. It should be a controlled listening test. And that's why I do the measurements, to show if there even is a possibility of there being anything audible between cable A and cable B. So if a company or a person is claiming, you can't rely on measurements, the measurements don't show you everything, you got to go with listening, and they don't want to do a listening test under a controlled scenario that's blind for determining very minute differences in things like cables, that's kind of a red flag to me. Because at the end of the day, I'm all about having the controls and the repeatability in everything we do. That way, if I did a test a certain way, then somebody else, a competitor or another guy online, could go and reproduce those results. It's all about reproducibility. So guys, I hope you found this video useful. Again, I appreciate the invite from Danny from GR Research. I hope one day to meet him face to face and maybe go to his facility, hear his system, or him come here, whatever. And for any other manufacturers that are on the fence about submitting products for review because you're worried about how they measure, we've been doing this now for over 2 decades, and I hope as time goes on, we're getting better and better at it. And I'm very appreciative of the guys that are on our review staff, like James Larson, Matthew Pose. We got Wade Robson. We got so many very talented guys on here to kind of help complete the picture of Audioholics, because Audioholics is not just one person. I try to get everybody's viewpoints. We've got guys on our channel that are into audio tweaks, that are into, putting isolation feet on their speakers. I don't necessarily believe in the magic on that, but you know what? I let everybody's opinion get out there, get on our magazine, and then you guys to decide whether you think that that's valid and you can test it out for yourself. So anyways, I hope you found this video useful. Don't forget about our Patreon channel at patreon.com/audioholics. We appreciate your support. You get direct access to me if you want to suggest video topics, or if you just want to ask questions. We also offer some consulting, so you can look for our pop-up on our audioholics.com website. And until next time, my friends, keep listening.